Just a quick one before we get into this episode. If you're in the UK and you use supplements, I'd highly recommend checking out Reflex Nutrition, where they're giving up to 40% on all their range if you use the code PTRNT at checkout. I've been using Reflex for nearly a decade, with their microwave being one of my favorite whey proteins. It's grass-fed, hormone-free, and digests so well compared to most on the market. Check out their full supplement range, including all your transformation basics and plant-based alternatives on reflexnutrition.com and use the code PTRNT at checkout for up to 40% off. It's not long left now till the new book, Transform Your Body, Transform Your Life, is released. Sunday, 24th of May is the big day, and I can't wait for you to get your copy. In the meantime, you can download the first chapter for free by going to www.rntfitness.com/book. Exciting times ahead, and I look forward to hearing what you think. On today's episode of RNT Fitness Radio, I'm joined by Alysha Badiani, author of Beyoutiful You, to talk all about improving your self-confidence and making self-love and self-care a priority in your life. In this episode, we dive into why it's critical to uncover the muck before starting any journey, and why the self-talk, respect, and communication with yourself is the most important relationship you'll ever have. If you're ready to get outside of your head, improve your self-confidence, and start living your best life, you won't want to miss this episode. Whereabouts in the world are you now?
I'm in Belsize Park. I'm still here in London.
Okay, so you haven't moved to Toronto?
No. I was looking at moving somewhere. I still might eventually, but I obviously with this new career path I'm trying to take, I didn't think a new city and a new industry would be kind of work at the same time. But
Yeah. What is the new career path you're looking on at the moment?
I'm just trying to help people, or young adults especially, recognize their own beauty and help them build their self-confidence through coaching and just kind of through the book, I guess, starting with that. But mostly through coaching and just trying to be a good role model in society for people to be able to reach out to and help with.
Awesome. Well, what is your target audience?
Young adults and late teens. So I want to help late teens because I think they're still at a position where you can really get to helping them understand and grounding themselves with being fully confident and comfortable with themselves. Mm-hmm. I think at that stage, they're still trying to find their feet and starting to embark in finding their place in the world and their voice in the world and what they kind of want to do. And I think a lot of self-confidence issues kind of stem from there when you're really trying to find your feet. And I think if you have that grounding, it really helps you when you're, embarking on whatever you're trying to do in life. And then also the young adults, because I think whatever we learn and what we have kind of feeds back to the young kids. Mm-hmm. And if we don't have confidence and if we're not being the best version of ourselves, what are we teaching the younger generation? So I've got the two kind of demographics that I really want to help.
With the late teens, are you approaching it in a school environment, or are you speaking with the parents? How is it working with the
predominantly through school and especially at universities? I feel like people get to university and you feel like you get to uni, it should just be a ball of fun. Everybody should enjoy the experience and it should just be a blast all the time. And things just figure itself out. And I think things do figure itself out. It's not always a blast and it's not always a party every single day. You have your lows, you have times where you're in isolation, you have times where you just don't know who to sometimes turn to, I guess. I know I felt like that. I'd moved countries and you just feel like everybody's kind of in the same boat or everyone's doing the same thing, but yet there's just lack of understanding and grounding of just being comfortable and confident and understanding that it'll all be okay. You just have to be able to reach out to the right people and have the right mentality and the mindset. I think the biggest thing is this mindset gap that we lack in society.
Absolutely. And just before we continue, I think it'll be useful for the listeners to understand a little bit more about who Alysha Badiani is. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I am Canadian. I was born in Vancouver, raised there, and then I moved to England in 2011 to study accountancy and economics. I went on to continue to do all that, and I became a chartered accountant. with BDO. It's a firm, based in Baker Street, top of mid-tier accountancy firms. So you got KPMG, Deloitte, EY, those are the top four, and then BDO just sits right underneath that. And then so I qualified there in financial service audit. It didn't quite fit the desk life, and then went into lecturing for the different accounting qualifications. Lecturing for the different accounting qualifications at a college called First Intuition. And I did that for about 18 months, just over that, I think. And then from there, I went on to now writing this book and pursuing this full time.
Oh, awesome. So that leads us nicely on to where the book fits into this journey of yours. And there's a lot I want to dig into the book, but let's start with why you decided to write a book. Because, I mean, first of all, I've got to say congratulations for publishing your book and writing it. I know it's only been out. Thank you. It's only been out for what, a month? Just over a month?
Yeah, just over a month now. I was really having some tough time with it at the end. I think the process has been a lot different to what I expected it to be. And towards the end of it, I was like, I just want to get it done before my birthday, before I turn 27. And the day before my birthday is when it released. So. Oh,
amazing. What were the biggest struggles at the end?
I think it's just finding some of the pieces and fitting it together, because my publishing company is based in Toronto. So there's a bit of difference in opinions with editorial stuff, and it's just been a bit of a struggle with certain.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I've known you for nearly 2 years now, and I know you were starting your work on it then. So it's very cool to see the journey through, and I think towards the end of 2018, so just about 18 months.
Yeah,
about 18 months. It's been cool to see you go through the journey and ultimately release it. So congratulations, and tell us a bit more about why you decided to write this book.
Yeah, so while I was a lecturer, this is where I reached out to you guys while I was already a lecturer, and I got the opportunity to be in a pageant to be Miss India UK. And I really struggled with my self-confidence and self-esteem. It was really at an all-time low. And I didn't really realize that until I actually had the opportunity to be in the pageant. So someone reached out to me and told me to apply for it. And I kind of just kept brushing it off because I just felt like it was a really vain thing to do. And then as I reflected on it, I just realized that I wouldn't really have that opportunity again to be in a pageant. And the pageant is not just about looks. It's not just about being about anything external. It's about having kind of both factors, right? Being confident, loving yourself and portraying that, but also everything else you do in society. It's about what you contribute, what you bring to the world. It's not just about being an objectified vain kind of thing. So I decided to go for it because I really had nothing to lose and I thought it would just be an interesting experience. And in that process, and I think especially on pageant day, I realized my confidence was a mask. I was confident in my skills, just not in myself. So I found this little confidence essence I used to take. I completely even forgot, but I used to take this thing thinking it would just help me like boost me a little bit. And I know this is an opportunity that I had that not many people have to realize this, I think, but I used to always go under the assumption that my lack of confidence was a way to keep pushing myself, to drive myself to do better. I never thought it was really that big of an issue. And when I was in the pageant and lost the pageant and I didn't even progress to the last round, that's when I realized that actually it just wasn't me standing on that stage. Like I was the first person on stage and I got there and everyone's looking at me and, I'm a dancer, I'm a performer. I lectured, like I can stand on stage and talk, but to have people just look at you while you just walk, that is the most awkward thing and the most weirdest thing that I've ever experienced, because they're just staring at you and you just have to portray and you just have to be you and be confident. And I was just a mask that I just couldn't hide behind. So I saw all the other girls on that stage on pageant day just be a completely different person, all this alter egos and things coming up. And I'm sure for many people it was genuine confidence, and for many people it was also a mask. But I just felt completely out of my realm because I'm a tomboy at heart. I'm a football player. I'm, everything but just being a, pageant girl in a way. So I realized that confidence wasn't okay. And for me to be thinking those thoughts I had of myself and feeling so negative about myself, it wasn't okay. And it was at that point I realized that I'm spending the rest of my life with just myself. And if I'm speaking to myself like that, it just something that I needed to work on. It wasn't healthy. It couldn't continue. So that's when I finished. That was at the end of 2018. And then at the beginning of 2019, that's when I started the book journey in January. So it's been just about a year, that it took me to get the whole process done.
Okay, so the pageant was actually the stimulus for you writing the book.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
I reached out to you guys just before the pageant, a month before that, because I was like, I thought 2019 I'd get into my best shape. And then with the pageant coming, I was like, it doesn't make any sense to do it after the pageant. But even then I channeled all my energy in improving my body image, because I thought my lack of confidence was because my body image was not to my standard. And I've always struggled with body image issues, I guess, since my teens, I would say. So I always associated that was the reason, that was the fault for not being confident myself, is because my skin, I wasn't lean. I wasn't a size 6. I wasn't this and this and this. And so I channeled all of the energy into being that. And yet when I got there and in my best shape, just at pageant, I was like, this is still not it. Like, why am I still, what is going on? I am in my best shape. I've done everything I needed to. And I just was using my dress as something to hide behind, hoping that people wouldn't see the face in the dress when I walked down that,
So would you say it was because you hadn't done the work inside? Oh,
yeah, massively. I mean, it tells you that by the fact that I was taking that confidence essence. And that's it. I never thought it was an issue that I needed to work on. For me, it was like fuel to keep improving myself, that it was something that was kind of unachievable, and that was the end journey. And you take little steps to improving your confidence. And this is why I would take up so many skills, and accounting and football and dance, and because I felt like I was worthy and more confident when I accomplished and did so many different things. And then that's it, when you stand on that stage where you're like, actually, it's not all the skills. It's not about everything else I can do, because I can do it. I still having done everything, still just lack confidence in myself. And that's the biggest killer. That's the biggest, I think, detriment to your own happiness, when you cannot just be in love with yourself and just appreciate yourself.
So did you write this book as a journey to your recovery, or did you write it after you started working on some of the internal issues?
It was a two-way process. So it definitely was through the journey, but it wasn't so much of a journal as this is what I'm feeling and this is how I'm getting through it. It was kind of like I not mastered it, but I went through that process and then talked about it. And it was a lot of introspection and like, why was I feeling this way? Where did my body image issues stem from? We grow and we start as babies and creatures into this world as just perfect beings of love and light. And so all these insecurities, we get them from somewhere. We have them, we learn them from somewhere. We look at other people and think, well, I used to view certain people as just like perfection. And when I would see they were insecure about it, I was like, well, if you're insecure about that, how do I have any, how can I be confident in myself about that? Because I'm nowhere near what you are anyways. And if that's something that you should be insecure about, then I clearly need to be as well. And it's all these subconscious things that go on that I think over time really built for me to be really lack this confidence in my own skin. So it definitely was a two-way street, and I definitely took a lot of time to introspect before I put pen to paper. It wasn't just pouring out knowledge, it was pouring out emotion. So I went to do the Audible for this just a few weeks ago, and it was really tough reading some of the stuff back because I know there was a lot of, emotion and stuff that stems through it.
Yeah, one thing we talk about is that you have to identify the muck before you can eliminate it.
Oh, yeah.
And most people's muck comes from before and comes from places that they don't want to go to. And it takes a lot of courage essentially to face the muck in order to eliminate it. Whereas if you try and do any sort of journey without confronting that initial pain and that deep hidden rooted pain and belief system about yourself, it's going to be very difficult to actually achieve a true transformation inside and out.
Yeah, it's true. I realized that. So over, I think the last few years, I would, I'm very social and would go out and meet different people. And then sometimes you need to regroup, have your own me time. And I realized that what I would do in that me time, rather than dealing with what was going on, I would just use that time to sweep all my issues under a carpet. And I just wouldn't deal with it. And that's exactly it, that you can't really put a sofa, you can't do anything on top of a carpet that's got loads of crap under it. You need to take that stuff out and you need to sort through it. You need to make the room more messy to clean it up. Right? You need to get get that dirt out from under there. So it was really interesting to dive deep and understand what kind of was going on.
So what was the first step for you then?
That was it. So the reason why the subtitle is How Recognizing Your Beauty is Fundamental to Living Your Best Life. That was it. I took it back to the why. Why was I so ashamed of myself on stage? Why was I really so insecure? Why am I good at talking as a lecturer? Why am I okay at dancing, at, putting myself out there in other ways, except not just standing on that stage? And it's because I just couldn't recognize my own beauty. Like I would never look at myself in the mirror and ever have anything positive to say. It was something could be improved. Something had to get better. Something wasn't good enough. Something was too puffy. And I was just so tired of saying and being so critical to myself that I realized that I just didn't appreciate my own looks. And it's not about saying that in a really vain way. It's just that you need to love yourself unconditionally and fully accept yourself. So I went on that journey of improving my body and getting more lean and my health, let's say. And it was not coming from a place because I love myself that I was doing that. It was because I was not confident in myself that I thought it will be better if and when. Yeah. So the perspective and the angle that I was coming at to improve myself wasn't the best.
Yeah, whereas if you'd potentially done the introspection first, then gone on the journey, it would have been a different story.
Oh, massively, yeah. Now, like I've always loved working out. I've always loved exercising and doing stuff, but it just gets progressively worse if you're in a bad state or a bad angle of what you're coming at, because it's never enough. So even when I got down to being ultimately as lean as I ever was, it was still not enough. I was still pinching something, being like, this needs to go, rather than being, that shouldn't ever have been an issue or something that I was thinking. It's not, this needs to go. It's, I love my body, and because I want to take care of my body, I want to do X, Y, and Z.
So Alysha, in your introspection, what you mentioned that, you're looking at yourself and you realize that you just didn't love yourself. Where did all this come from? What was your muck? Like, what was some of the deep rooted things you were brushing under the carpet that you hadn't confronted yet?
I have just never felt, or I never used to feel like I was enough. Like I never felt worthy. I think part of maybe, let's say, it's middle child syndrome or something, but I'm always trying to stand out and do something different. And so I think I got into this rap of just never feeling good enough at anything, or that I was worthy enough in society. And I wasn't worthy enough of my own love because I wasn't the best at certain things. And maybe this is also part of my being a perfectionist. And it's when I started having awareness of all this kind of stuff that I was feeling, that's when you can start changing it and twisting it and taking this muck out. I think that was just really it, that I just never really felt like I was enough.
Can you pinpoint specific situations or memories that you refer to this feeling of not being enough?
Yeah, I talk about one of my stories in my book of when I was in year 6, and this is going to sound really silly. This is probably pure puberty, but I was in year 6 and I was always a tomboy at school. Like all the girls would go run and play house and get dressed up, and I would go with the boys to play football on the field. And at year 6, you're kind of growing up now, and it's just not, people don't just play football and play house at school anymore. You're a bit older. And so what people would do though is create lists of people they were interested in class. And so you'd rank everybody in top to bottom. And I was consistently at the bottom of everyone's list. Of all the guys' list. And I found that really hard because I was like, I'm friends with all of you and we play all the time and I don't need to be at the top, but I was like the bottom of everyone's list. And it was just a bit of a joke of, don't worry, like you're anywhere near the top. Like if my page ran out, you weren't even on it. And I was just like, oh, this is great. I just felt so unworthy of people's time or attention and stuff in that way. And it's also, I went to the same school for 12 years, and so I never really needed to make new friends. But then I would join football, and outside of school, I was then in a football team, the only person that went to a private school, and everyone else was public. So I never fit in on that side either sometimes. It was just always feeling like I needed to fit in different kind of aspects. It was really difficult. And then coming to uni, I thought it'd be a completely different experience. You know, I was trying to start with a fresh page. No one knew my past. Because I think even in Canada, I always associated or assumed that it was the same group of people or similar groups of people, but the culture was the same. So I would never fit in. So when I moved here at 18, I was like, nobody knows me. Nobody knows of like my lame past or how I was, I say lame in quotes for if you can't see this, but my tomboy past that people won't know, and I can just start with a fresh page. But even that, it was so hard making new friends at university when you've never needed to really do that before, when you've always just been in such a confined group, I would say. So that was really difficult. But again, it's not something that was new to me, it was not individual to me. Everybody was going through that at uni. It's just people put on a different face and pretend like it's not hard and it's not something we need to do. I think making friends as adults is also quite difficult because people are all just in their own loops, right? It's hard to just, so it's, yeah.
I think that's what you mentioned, what you've actually done there. You started with one event in year 6, but you actually mentioned quite a few different significant events in your life. And what was interesting is I went to a hypnotherapist at the end of 2019 to discuss something similar about, not feeling like you're enough and not feeling like you're ever getting there. And, when they put you on a hypnotherapy and they explore your subconscious, you end up going towards about 4 to 6 different moments in your forming years. So for me, it was like when I was 7, 10, 11, and like 16. And these moments, they might be positive, they might be negative, but they form belief systems that you carry on later on into life.
Yeah.
And I think like what you've done there is pretty much, if I had to recap my own like hypnotherapy session, is very similar in the sort of timelines you mentioned there. So that's very interesting, and I'm curious to know how you.
What was your youngest one that you can recollect?
I think it was 7.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So
it's interesting because this stuff really starts, and at 7 years old, they say that's when you really start forming. Your habits are really in place. The way you talk, walk, do certain things, but now your mental capacity really starts taking shape. So it's that when something happens once, it's a one-off. And then once it happens again and that feeling repeats, it's, there's a pattern. And then when it keeps happening, it just becomes a thing. And until you tackle it and understand that this is this vicious loop that we're going into, you can't break that loop because you always get back to that same feeling.
Exactly. How did you start your journey of ultimately dealing with these different pain points and these different belief systems that you've been carrying over through your life?
Part of my personality that I learned recently is that I always feel like I can tackle the world alone. And I think this is probably linked to some of these memories of how I just didn't feel like I fit in, that I would always have to do it on my own. So for me, introspecting and journaling was really helpful. I know I got Nathan getting onto that, and I think he even found it. I know even you journal, don't you?
Yeah.
I think it's been really powerful because I really got to be able to understand what events and what things were coming up for me. And I wrote things out without judgment, which is probably one of the hardest things, because when you have that voice talking in the back of your head, sometimes you're just not even aware to the actual words and crap that's coming out. But when you write it down, you're like, oh my gosh, what kind of thoughts have I got? Like, what am I saying to myself? This is a joke. And when I started journaling and post pageant, I sat there and I was just cut up about the fact that one of the judges gave me a 4 out of 10 for my looks. And it really hurt. Yeah, but it only hurt because I somewhat thought that about myself. And it hurt because people were kind of joking about it, and people that I knew. And if I didn't think that about myself, it wouldn't have hurt. It would have been a joke. But subconsciously, it hit a nerve. And so I then was like putting myself down for it. And then I was like, I just didn't understand why I was putting someone else's views of my looks above my own. Like, I would never really consciously say I'm a 4. I would never consciously say I'm a 10. I didn't even think it really mattered that much, but it just, for me, made me aware that I did clearly have issues with my own looks and with my confidence in myself.
How have you dealt with that compared to now?
So it's one of these things that I think when you realize and recognize your own beauty and appreciate yourself for who you are, you start wasting that time dwelling over it. Like, you have gratitude for what you have, and you gratitude for the fact that your parents even gave you life, than to be sitting there dwelling on, oh, this and this and this could be better. Like, we get sometimes stuck in our own head so much to thinking that our grass is so dry and it needs to be improved and this and this and that. But actually, we have so much to be grateful for, and it's so irrelevant. Like, I would waste so much time getting ready in the mornings to go to work and to do stuff and to be put on this, fake mask of me appreciating and loving myself. When actually, when I really did, and I stopped caring what everyone thought about me, I could be so much more productive in every other aspect of my life. And I started using my mornings to practice gratitude, and to be in different thoughts and to start my day on a really positive note, rather than sitting there dwelling about my looks and how things could be improved, because it's just such a negative way to start your day. And most people do it, and I don't even think it's just girls. I think guys do it too. Like, you're getting ready in the morning and it's, oh, this doesn't fit anymore, or this doesn't feel so good, or this is too tight, or this is too loose. And if you're trying to, put weight on, and we get in such rap in our own head when we're getting ready. It's just a waste of time.
That's why you should wear the same thing every day.
Exactly.
Cut the decisions.
Yeah.
But on a serious note, what do you say to, what are some of the strategies you talk about on getting outside of your own head? Because that's a problem, like you said, both men and women struggle with.
Yeah.
Of all ages, we're stuck in our own heads. And I would say it's probably more so in the younger generation, or at least they're the ones who we know more of that struggle with this. Talk with us about some of the strategies that you use for this, outside of gratitude and journaling that you mentioned.
So I definitely think talking to someone really helps through this, because this is not something that is individual to anyone. I think everybody at some level or at some point goes through this. And talking to, just even verbalizing how you feel about yourself, because until, again, you get it out or even talk to someone, you can't sometimes deal with it or change the way you think about it. So for me now, and it's, again, having the awareness of the issue is not a solution in itself either. Like, I knowing then that I was so down about myself, it didn't just snap overnight that I was just happy and in love with myself. It's that I was aware of when I would have these thoughts come into my head that I would kind of dismiss it. So I use this tool. I've told a bunch of people to do this, and I think it helps some people. What I do is I imagine there's a butler standing in my room, or I just imagine a butler standing in my head, I guess, holding this bin. And I make the bin really glamorous. Like, mine's pink, it's got bedazzles all over it, and he's just standing there with a bow tie. And anytime I have this negative doubt or negative thought, or something mean to say about myself, I walk that thought over to the bin and I put it in the bin, and he just stands there and collects all that crap, because I don't want that festering in. And at night before I go to bed, I always try and end the day on a positive note as well. So even that same way, I make him leave, clear the bin, take the bin out. You don't want that stuff piling up. But I think having awareness of the issue is the first thing, and having someone to talk to really helps. So I'm always there for people to reach out to. This is exactly what I'm trying to help people with. But I think it's individual for everybody as well, like the level of negativity and the level of self-confidence issues and stuff that people have. It's different.
Do you recommend people writing it out instead of picturing in their head?
Yeah, this is where I find journaling really powerful. But I think when it's in having that bin in my head is for a ongoing thing.
Okay,
through the
got
day.
it.
So when I'm, trying to get my work done or something, it's just a way of dismissing it.
One of the things you touched on earlier, you called it the longest relationship in your life is going to be the one you have with yourself.
Yeah.
I really like the way you coined that. What are some of the facets of a fruitful, fulfilling, and healthy relationship with yourself?
So I think we need to treat our relationship with ourselves as we would any other relationship. So one thing I talk about in our book is, what are the key aspects that you would have in a relationship? Communication, trust, respect. These are all things that we would have in any relationship with somebody else. And I think these are things we need to have with ourselves as well. And until we learn to start treating and respecting ourselves, will we not, you know, we won't really take yourself seriously. So just like health is so important, I think health is actually one of the most important things we have. It's the only thing we really have. If you're going to go to the gym, you don't cancel on somebody else. You wouldn't cancel on plans you've got in the evening. You shouldn't be canceling on yourself. If you've got plans to make a healthy dinner, you don't cheat on a partner. You wouldn't want someone to cheat on you. Just don't cheat on yourself. You know, you wouldn't talk to someone really rudely and shout at them. You can't be rude to yourself. It's just treating a relationship with yourself just like you would any other relationship. And again, because as I said, having that longest relationship is with yourself. I think we all want to be rich in life, don't we? Like, we all want to be successful. And I think rich gets misinterpreted for just being monetary. Rich doesn't just mean being rich in money. It just means being rich in smiles and experiences and happiness and love in all sorts of different ways. And it's really interesting because obviously we're now going through this COVID crisis and this pandemic, that is, I think, a time for people to be able to introspect and realize that there is much more to life than just money and finances. And it's a hugely important aspect for sure. But relationships, your health, all of these other things are just as important, if not more. And these are certain things that get neglected so often. So I think that was it, that I feel you're only doing yourself an injustice if you're not the best version of yourself.
What does living a rich life mean to you then? What's the most important facet for you?
I love making people smile, and I love new experiences. So I know most people don't like change. I quite like it, and I don't mind it. So I really like to try and be spontaneous and try something new. If things pop up, I will go for it. This pageant came up and I just decided I have nothing to lose. I'm going to go for it. But I just love to make people smile because it just brings me a lot of happiness as well. So one consistent thing I do every week, I know it's really small, but I buy someone a coffee every Tuesday as a way of hopefully starting this ripple effect where people just do a favor to someone else and keep it kind of going. And it doesn't have to be coffee onwards. I just do it to make someone smile. As long as they do another gesture for someone else, like even hold the door open or carry their shopping bags for them or something. It just, makes other people smile. It keeps it going.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I want to shift gears a bit and talk about identity and what identity means to you.
Yes.
What does it mean to you? What does identity mean to you?
Gosh, that's a really good question. To me, it's just being that person that I think I would want. I want to be a good role model, essentially. So the thing is about being the best version of myself. I'm not just doing it just so I'm happy and I feel kind of comfortable in my skin, but I know that I had role models growing up and I'm going to be role model to someone else. So I think having a good, clean heart, having a good mindset, and just being genuine and being loving is all that really matters. I think we only have fear and love in the world, and we just always have to choose love. So, and in doing that, hopefully we can teach the younger generation and people around us as well to always kind of live in that way. I don't know. What do you mean so much by identity?
What do you identify as? What do you classify as your identity?
There's so many different aspects of that.
Yeah, of course. It's not limited to one, right?
Yeah, I think it's just being a loving being. I think it doesn't matter, you can say you're Hindu, you could say you're this, you could say, we're all just human. And it doesn't matter what my identity is per se in that way. It's just being a loving being. That's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
We're all in society together. We can identify ourselves in so many different ways. It's just love is the one thing that I think is the identity I want to associate most with. Yeah.
It's always an interesting question because I think everyone does identify with something.
How would you identify with it?
Identity means something. Well, I think there's multiple facets of it. Like you said, I mean, for me, identify as a son, a brother, a partner, a writer, a coach, a business owner. There's multiple facets to my identity that forms who Akash is. I think there's not one aspect of it. And I think it's just different things that you identify with that define.
I agree. And I think that's why I probably stick and say to love, because I think that's the one thing that I feel like is in common with all these different facets that we have.
Yeah, it's what you love doing and being.
Yeah, it's always that. Who do you want to actually be, right? You step into the shoes of the person you want to be, not someone you think you should be. And I think it doesn't matter in whatever work situation, family, friends, whatever it is, I think just bringing light and love to any situation you're in is the most important thing, for me at least.
Yeah, absolutely. And the title of the book, Beyoutiful You, and just for the listeners, it's spelled Beyoutiful You.
Yeah.
How did you come across that title? I thought it was a good play on words.
Thank you. You know, the weird thing is I thought of the word or that thing, I think maybe I even saw it somewhere when I was quite young, beautiful. And I always held on to it because I thought it was just so unique, and it's such a clever spin to say, you know, you can be beautiful, but be you at the same time. And when I just always thought I'd grow up to do something to do with that word. And then when I decided to write the book, it just kind of came into my head that I've always just held on to that spelling of the word and to write it this way. So I don't know, it just kind of really came to me, which is really, because even when I started the book, my biggest thing was to not live a mundane life, and the life that you would regret later down the line. You know, there's so much distraction through social media and so many different things right now with technology that it's so easy to get lost into it and to lose so much time and efficiency through it. And that's still a massive message in the book, but I realized that my biggest thing that I wanted to share with people is to just appreciate and love who you are altogether. And I feel like when you don't just appreciate who you are, you're not even criticizing yourself, you're criticizing your divine creators, you're criticizing the universe, you're criticizing your parents for having you and for, you know, bringing you into this life. So, and giving you what you've got. And I think that's it. It's just shifting perspective.
That's powerful. Do you speak about any of this with your parents?
Yeah, it's been really difficult in the way that I think when I did bring some of this to my dad's attention, obviously a very protective, loving side came out of, if I knew you were struggling with this, I would have just kind of given you a hug and said it doesn't matter. But the point is that these are our own journeys, and this is not something that could have just been helped with a hug and a kiss, as much as I wish it would have been. And I think for them, it was hard to even understand and hear some of the things that I was feeling, because they obviously didn't know it. And it was definitely hard for them to hear some of it. And I thought it was important to share some of this with them before I shared it with the world, because it's a whole new side to me that they probably didn't realize. I mean, I didn't really realize it was issues that I had, you know, that's the whole point of the introspection. But I definitely sent them the book early and talked them through some of it. And they've been really supportive of it, and they understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. I mean, I left accountancy to do this. And in the beginning, it was like, you've got a stable, safe career. Why are you doing this? And now they understand that for me, it's just about giving back. It doesn't really matter what else I do. It's just as long as I can help other people with their self-confidence and self-love, that's the most important thing. So they've been really supportive of it. But I think it's still, there's so many layers to it. I'm just trying to expose them to some of it.
Of course. And what advice would you give to parents potentially listening to this for their own kids? I think there's a big point for that conversation to be had, and that open channel of communication.
One thing that I think we all forget sometimes is that even as adults, we have to remember that when we were kids, we had these insecurities, and our kids, or the younger generation, let's say, are going to have these insecurities. And sometimes there's nothing you can do except just be there for them and understand that they're going to have it. So sometimes I feel like people get in trouble, or, you know, you get told off for saying certain things or feeling certain things because you never want to hear a child say that. And it's not to judge them. It's just to understand why they're feeling that way, because it's the environments that they're in at school, and there's so many different environments past them, or we've just got at home, that can expose them to a lot of insecurities. And in the same way, we as adults are also very insecure. And until we deal with some of our insecurities, we're not going to teach them to be any better. So for me, it's always been that when I know my nieces and nephews and people around me, when I hear things like this or insecurities that people have, it's what is coming up that they're starting to feel this way. What are they being taught down to? rather than blame them or say, well, they're thinking this and they're starting to feel this. They have to have learned some of this from somewhere. But it's just put yourself in their shoes sometimes. We were all young and had these things, right? There's only so much you can be coddled and helped through it when you're young. It's going to come up for everyone. I can't hear you as you...
I think having an open level of communication is absolutely vital. And I think it extends beyond just parent and child, but also peer to peer.
Yeah, massively.
Having friendships and people you can rely on to speak to, and not being afraid of speaking to them is going to be critical.
Yeah, it's true. Sorry, that's a very good point about peer to peer. And it's the other thing is that I guess your parents are in the same boat, that they're born in Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my parents had that, born there too. My grandparents were born there. And those generations went through a lot of trauma of their own, of having to move here at such a young age with just, a blanket and such little limited things and so many responsibilities at such a young age, and not really time to have this space to introspect and deal with a lot of these emotions. And because of that, it gets kind of fed down to a lot of us, not on purpose and not because they want to, but they themselves just never had time to really understand their own feelings. And so I had my grandma's brother reach out to me about part of like some things I wrote in the book. And he was saying that he even can resonate with a lot of it, because he's like, he went through his own insecurity and had those feelings, feeling like he wasn't enough and feeling like he never fit in. And they all kind of go through this, but it doesn't really get resolved because they never really had a chance to resolve it.
Yeah.
So it's just being compassionate to the fact that it's not like people do this on purpose. It's not like we learn this on, or push it onto other people on purpose, but we have to understand that everybody's going through their own thing and everyone's just trying their best. So definitely peer to peer, and that doesn't just then mean our own age. It's just being compassionate and understanding to everybody around us.
I was actually having a conversation with someone the other day about why mental health isn't spoken about as much in previous generations. And sometimes it can be seen as a stigma with them and less so with us because it's more spoken about now. And I think it's exactly that. It's just they were more worried about survival than improvement. It was more a case of let's just try and stay alive and keep our family alive, as opposed to let's see how we can optimize everything.
Yeah.
We're actually in a very fortunate position to be able to focus on these sorts of things. I think people should bring a level of gratitude towards that.
I completely agree. I think they had a very different, it was a very different time. The responsibilities were so different. It was about putting food on the table, and you live in sometimes small houses with like 10 people and everyone's just trying to, provide to the family. Like my dad used to get an income and it wasn't his, it was the family's. Like you can't come home and give it to your older brother. It's very different to kind of what society is now. And we're very fortunate. You're very right. We're very fortunate to be able to consider and sit here and having these kind of problems and to think about some of this stuff that our moms and parents and grandparents didn't even have a chance to. And I don't think it was even such a thing that they even thought they had an opportunity to bring it up.
No.
Or even think about the fact that it was an issue. You just got on with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
On that same note, I think we're only just doing them a disservice by not being the best version of ourselves today, because our parents, our forefathers, everybody's gone through so much to bring us where we are today. To not utilize and love our life to the fullest and appreciate our life and make the most of it now, it's just doing them a disservice. They've done so much to bring us to be in comfortable positions today. To just sit here and live an okay life or to not make the most of it, it's like, what have they all fought for, and what have they all tried so hard for, and why have they put so much of their life into putting a roof over our head and giving us comfortable beds and stuff to sleep in, when we are just going to kind of throw our life away. So
go ahead. Sorry, I keep interrupting.
No, I just always keep that close to my heart, that everybody's gone through so much to bring me here today. I don't want to just throw it away. I think that's why I left accounting, per se. What I was
going to say is, how much do you think social media has a part to play in affecting it more for our generation, or the younger generations per se?
Hugely. We compare ourselves to everybody else. subconsciously are always doing it, I think. And social media just exemplifies that. Before this, it was just the media of advertisements. And if you want to go back to the 40s and whatever, 50s, 60s, you want to say, it was advertisements and things that we would compare ourselves to. Whereas now we're just bombarded with this stuff. Like, you can't really get away from it, even with ads on TV, and it's just everywhere. So I think this is where focus shifts a little bit. And I was reading a statistic recently about how with the increased amount of technology we have, we would expect efficiency to be going up in places. And actually it's gone the complete opposite, because people are wasting so much time doing things that are not necessarily work related. So I think this is it, that we spend a lot of time just comparing ourselves, and limiting the amount of social media use is definitely important. But we also have to remember that we're at the very beginning stages of social media and the use of it. So learning to use it in healthy amounts, and how to use it in healthy amounts, is more important. Absolutely.
How do you feel like you've come in the past 18 months? So you had this, if we just circle back to where we started in this chat, you had the pageant that stimulated a lot of introspection, and it ultimately revealed the muck that you were dealing with.
Yes.
Where are you now compared to that? Where are you? You talk about self-love and self-confidence. How do you feel in yourself in both love and confidence compared to the woman who was on stage nearly 18 months ago?
I fully accept and love myself now unconditionally. And I think that's the biggest change and gift that I've given myself. That you still have your peaks and troughs, and you still go through certain things that you're not, you always have your ups and downs, but through all of what I'm going to go through, I trust myself, I love myself, and I'm going to back myself through it. And so now my story, for me, what I'm trying to do, it becomes about service and not about just dwelling on my own self. So I went through that journey, appreciated myself, overcame my confidence issues, and now I'm using it to kind of channel it in a different way to be able to serve other people and help people get to that same sort of place, because it just opens up so much time and efficiency for so much other stuff. I now come at everything else with a different perspective. I'm much more kinder to myself in nature, and likewise, I don't let negativity into my life in the same way. Whereas previously I would have entertained it a little bit because I felt like it must have been true if someone else thought this about me. I don't really care for people's negative comments and stuff anymore.
If you could speak to that girl or woman on stage in December 2018, what would you tell her?
Oh, that's a good one. If I could look at her and give her some advice, it would be to just don't shine behind that dress, and don't wear something that you think is it's gonna take over the look for you. People are still gonna see your face, and they're gonna love it, and you're gonna love it, and it doesn't matter what they think. You love yourself, and you should love yourself. So just rock that stage like you're the Alysha that you are. Be that tomboy and let that shine. It's fine. It doesn't matter what people think. What matters is what you think. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Amazing. What is in store for Alysha then in 2020 and beyond? What's next?
Oh, that's a good question. So I don't really set New Year's resolutions or, yearly things per se specifically, because I feel like I like to be open to opportunities where they come. Like with this book, I met my a mentor of mine who convinced me to write a book. I never thought that at the time. What I do know is I want to continue to get myself in. I just want to continue to help people as much as I can in different ways. So I'm hoping to work with some. I'm talking to some companies at the moment to kind of get into their offices and help people with confidence, especially women in leadership, because I think, especially with this feminist movement and everyone talking about this, what I think is still lacking is this confidence that women and people have, or young adults have. So, and that gets in your way of progression sometimes. But yeah, it's really just connecting with more people, getting into more schools and universities, and being able to be someone that I can, people will listen to and kind of can reach out to if they've got self-confidence issues.
And
I don't want to say issues, or if they have low self-confidence, I should say.
And how can people reach out to you?
You can reach out to me through Instagram or through LinkedIn, or even Facebook. I'm on all platforms. It's just my name, Alysha Badiani.
Brilliant. Yeah, we can link that in the show notes. And for people that want to check out and learn more about the book, where can they buy Beyoutiful You?
Yeah, it's available on Amazon. It's called Beyoutiful You. I think that'll be in the notes as well. I'll probably post it. But it's on my profile as well on LinkedIn and on Instagram. So as long as you reach out or, find me somewhere, you'll be able to find links to the book, but definitely all through Amazon.
Amazing. And the one question I have for you is, will there be a second book?
That's a great question. Honestly, I'm sure there will be eventually. I'm not sure at the moment. A lot of people are saying to me, with this quarantine that we've got going on, I should just whip out a second book. I was thinking about that. I should write about life in quarantine, although I don't think anybody's going to read it for like 40 years because we're obviously all going through it together.
Yeah.
But what about you? How's your book process going?
Yeah, it's going well. We're recording today on the 24th of March, and it's coming out on the 24th of May. So 2 months to go.
Oh, exciting.
And just in the typesetting and formatting stage now. So most of my work's done now. Yeah. It's all with the publishers now to take it over to the finish line. I'm actually shifting my focus onto the campaign ahead of the launch, marketing the book and making sure that it gets out to as many people as possible.
Yeah, that's a quite different journey. That's what I guess I'm doing right now too. It's just an ongoing thing. Hey?
Yeah, this is a different project completely in itself. I mean, I was sitting down to map it all out earlier this week, and I was like, oh my God, I thought the writing the book was hard. This is just as hard.
This is it. This is exactly what I mean. I know.
So should have a plan by the end of the week, and then full steam ahead, and we shall see how it goes.
Well, I'm excited for you.
Thank you. If you had a parting advice for anyone listening, what would it be? Have you got any parting advice for the listeners here?
Parting advice is to love yourself no matter what you're going through and whatever. I know a lot of people listening to this are obviously going through their RNT journey, and to make sure you come at a place of it with love. Go through this journey because you love yourself, not because you feel like you want to improve, and you will love yourself when you get to that shape. Love yourself now, appreciate who you are when you look in the mirror today, and then go on that journey because you love yourself, not the other way around.
Amazing. Thanks for coming on, Alysha.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here today on this episode of RNT Fitness Radio. I'd love for you to do a quick little favor for us. Please head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating, leave a comment, and share it with your family and friends. If you're interested in learning more about how to transform your body and positively change your life, go to www.rntfitness.com and explore all our free content on offer. Thank you.